Every writer knows showing up on the days when you're not feeling it, even if you just get a word or two out, ultimately helps you knock down those internal emotional blocks that are getting in your way. What I'm going to teach you tonight just does it much faster. We're going to do something really cool today. I just got back from a hypnosis convention where many of the best hypnotists in the world came together, and I learned a lot. And I want to share some of the stuff that I learned with you. If you're worried about being hypnotized, if you don't want to be hypnotized, don't worry. We're going to save the hypnotic portion of this to the very end. So if you're like, whoa, that's not for me, no problem. You can just bail out at the end. And what we're going to use the beginning of this to do is to talk about writer's block. Not just the kind of writer's block. Who's had the kind of writer's block where you can't write? Cool. That's the easy kind of writer's block. Believe it or not. And I'm sure if you just raise your hand, you're like, easy, are you kidding me? This is the bane of my existence. But the reason it's easy is because it actually can be very easily alleviated. And the people who have it know they have a problem. Oh my God, I can't write. And they know it doesn't make sense. They know, oh, this doesn't make sense that I think I'm going to die when I sit down to write. We can see that it's a crazy idea from a crazy part of our mind. And the good thing is there are very wonderful, effective tools to get rid of it. And so if you have the kind of writer's block where you can't write, well, that's easy. But there's a whole other kind of writer's block. And that's the kind of writer's block where you're actually writing all the time, but you feel disconnected from your characters. You feel like your writing is flat. And maybe you even feel like you're like wearing blinders. Like there's like something you just can't see. Like there's a veil or something between you and something you know is inside of you. And the hard thing about that form of writer's block is that a lot of the people who have it don't know that they're blocked. Instead, they think, I must not have talent. They don't have the obvious evidence that everybody else has. Oh, I'm not writing, and that doesn't make sense. They're going, well, I'm writing, but it's not very good. Well, I'm writing, but I'm not feeling anything. Well, I'm writing, but I can't connect. I can't figure out what happens next. They're having that feeling, and they then interpret that feeling to mean, well, I guess I must not be very good. I guess I must not have what it takes to do this thing that matters so much for me. There's a third form of writer's block that manifests even just a little bit differently from that. It's a kind of writer's block I call the bouncing block. If you go way back in my podcast, this might be even before it was the podcast, when it was just a blog. And here's the way the bouncing block works. These people are masters of writing the first 10 pages. They can write the best first 10 pages you've ever read in your life. It's so beautiful. Everyone who reads it goes, oh my God, you've got to finish this. And they finish and they're like, yeah, I got to finish this. I am freaking amazing. And then they go, you know what? But that's not the right idea. I've got another idea. I'm going to bounce over here to this great writing, just not the best idea. And they're kind of like the serial daters of writing, where they can do a 10-day relationship really wonderful, but they're going to struggle when it's a month, when it's 3 months, when it's a year, right? And they start to go, maybe really nice relationship, I'm doing a good job, having a good time, but I think there's something better over there. This kind of writer's block is slightly different. It's a skill set issue. But the writer doesn't realize it's a skill set issue. There's a very specific set of tools that you need physically to write 10 pages. But as your script gets longer and longer, there are additional tools that you need. Ever build a pillow fort when you were a child? You don't need a blueprint. It's a pillow fort. And you can even build a pretty badass pillow fort and it'll stay up. And maybe you can even figure out you're camping and you're like, I'm going to build a lean-to, right? And you gather some branches and maybe some paper bags and you kind of figure it out and you're like, I think this is going to work. You make some tweaks and pretty soon you're dry. But at the point you want to build a house, you need a different level of infrastructure. In fact, if you've ever seen them build a house, what do they do first? They actually build the foundation first. If you've ever seen a building go up, it's like months that they're just digging down, building this really deep foundation. And you're like, they're never going to finish this building. And then suddenly, it's like a week and the building's up. Anybody ever seen that? Because there's a different level of what they call foundation, what we call structure, that you need as your piece gets longer. So the first two kinds of writer's block are actually emotional blocks. I can't write. It's an emotional block. And we might not be aware of this yet, but I can't figure out what happens next, I can't see it, I can't connect, it's flat. That's also an emotional block. And what we're going to be talking about today is how those emotional blocks often connect to trauma. And then for those of you who want, we're going to do a hypnotic exercise at the very end where we learn how to just take that old trauma and just put it behind us. I saw this done at the convention and it was really powerful. And then I tried it with a few people and I saw tremendous results, and it takes about 15 minutes. So it's a really cool thing that you can do for yourself, and you can do it with your friends once you learn how to do it. The process of writing will already help you deal with those blocks. Every writer knows showing up on the days when you're not feeling it, even if you just get a word or two out, ultimately helps you knock down those internal emotional blocks that are getting in your way. What I'm going to teach you tonight just does it much faster. I want to differentiate those because we're not going to talk deeply about these other blocks today because we have other classes that do a really good job of this. If you haven't taken Write Your Screenplay yet and you're struggling to figure out what happens next and you're struggling to find the structure that you need to build the next level, well, that's a really good place to start. Or if you're more at the, I'm really serious about this and I want to grow my career, this is what we do in the masterclass, right? We learn these techniques. But what I do want you to understand is if you're crapping out after 10 pages and finding yourself bouncing to different ideas, or if you always think your idea is not good enough, you don't actually have an idea problem. You have a craft problem. I started my career, I was a story editor. I was really an in-house writer. And it was my job. It was much cheaper for the production company for me to help the writer fix the script than it was to hire a new writer. I was often seeing scripts by writers who were genuinely phoning it in. They didn't give a crap. They used to be an award-winning, Academy Award-winning screenwriter. Now they're writing a TV movie and they're making $100,000 and they used to make $1 million. And they didn't even like the idea. And maybe the idea was even a bad idea at the beginning. They were phoning it in and that's why they were going to get fired because these were always great writers. We didn't hire crappy writers. What I learned was that no matter how bad the idea was, and even if the writer thought they didn't care about it, if you could identify the places where the writer was connected, I called them the me droppings. You can't write 100 pages of even sellout writing without accidentally leaving little pieces of yourself in it. And that if I could identify the me droppings in the script, the little pieces of that writer's authentic voice that made it onto the page, that we could transform literally any script or any idea into something brilliant. So if you are struggling with your idea and you're like, what a shitty idea, what a great first 10 pages, there's a good chance that you just either don't know how to identify your own me droppings, right? Because oftentimes the parts of us that are most authentic and most beautiful are actually the things that we want to throw out because they make us feel uncomfortable. They're a little scary. Other people don't write like this. This is different than I've seen in other scripts. Usually, if you're bouncing, your job is to simply tell yourself, hey, I got to finish this one before I get to start the next one. And even if finishing means it's still a terrible script, but I got to the end. Because what that will do is slowly, and of course we can speed it up, right? That's why we have a school. There are lots of things that we can do to speed up this process for you and make it more effective. But the truth is, if you've written 10 pages 20 times, and this time you write 11 pages, guess what? You just started to learn a new skill. And guess what? When you get it to 12 pages, you'll have also learned a new skill. And when you finally make it to 30 and it's completely broken because you don't understand structure yet, you're still training yourself in a new skill. And so just like with the other blocks, the emotional blocks we're talking about, you can choose, if you want to do this on your own, to slowly just chip away. And just by pushing yourself a little bit past where you're comfortable each time, eventually with time you build the skills. But that's a very slow way to do it. So wouldn't it be better to learn the one tool that lets you go bang, and suddenly, oh, now I know how to write to 30 pages. And bang, here's the next thing I needed that gets me to 40, right? And here's the next thing that gets me to the C change, 60. And here's the thing that gets me all the way to the end. And now here's the tool I use to go back through and revise that. We want to be attacking this from different angles. What's really important for anyone dealing with writer's block, the less you write, the more blocked you become. The more you write, the less blocked you become. Period. You cannot defeat writer's block in your head. You can only defeat writer's block by doing the process of writing. Because if you try to do all the work in your head, what happens is the gap between what your head knows how to do and what your fingers knows how to do gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So if you learn every tool but you don't write, now there's even more that you don't know how to do yet, right? To give you a little metaphor, a lot of you know I'm a student of improv. I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I love it. And I've integrated a lot of those things to make myself a better writer and a better teacher. Recently, I decided I really need to do this. I need to do a lot of improv. And a very interesting thing happened to me once I started doing it on the stage as opposed to in my mind, is I started to bump up against the limits of my physical abilities, especially when you're performing with people who have been acting for 20 years. And you realize, oh, I'm not in my body. Oh, I'm getting the great idea, but I'm getting it a minute after the show's over. The only way to solve that is by practicing, even though a great teacher can help you go get there in a day rather than in a year. Make sense to everybody? Okay, so we've got the three kinds of blocks. We got the emotional blocks. Guess what? We can actually heal those today. And then we've got the craft blocks. And those we heal over time with tools, but we need the writing. At the end of class today, I'm going to do an exercise with you. It's going to change your life. And you need to take the other piece of that step and go, and tomorrow I'm going to show up, or tonight after class, I'm going to show up and do the writing and take advantage of that change. So there was another question that I saw. Is there a block when you don't realize your writing sucks? Not that that's my issue. I have the I can't write at all problem. Okay. Yes. So there is a kind of block where you don't know your writing sucks. It has a twin sister, and her name is I don't know my writing's good. And they tend to hang out together. In fact, often we're dancing with both twins at the same time. I'm the best writer in the world. No one has ever written as well as me. I have a gift that nobody else understands. If only they could see. And I'm the worst writer in the world. I have no talent. What am I even doing? I'm a total fraud. Anybody dance with both of these twins at the same time? They are both. They're both trauma blocks and they're craft blocks. There's a certain level of craft and experience we need to differentiate between this is working and this is not. In our early drafts, sometimes the diamonds don't look like diamonds yet, and we need a certain amount of craft to deal with it. And similarly, sometimes we get obsessed with flashy objects that are not actually helping the script. And so there's a part of the, I don't know it's good or I think it's better than it is, that is actually craft, right? That there's just stuff we don't know till we know it. The other part of it is an emotional block. Usually we're not really asking, is the script good? Usually what we're really asking is, am I any good? Right? Usually when you sit down to read your script, if it was just like, yeah, this isn't good yet, you just keep working on it. Or if you're like, oh, this is really freaking brilliant, you'd be like, oh, cool, I'm going to build on this. Usually the actual question we're asking is, am I any good? Am I worthy? Am I a worthwhile writer? Do I deserve this? Do I have any right to be here? That's actually the question we're asking. Here's the crazy and interesting thing about the ego. The ego doesn't give a crap whether it's attaching to something positive or negative about you. If you want to know more about this, read some Eckhart Tolle. I definitely recommend A New Earth. In fact, I'll chat that in. The ego doesn't care if it attaches to the identity of twin number 1, you suck, or twin number 2, you're the greatest in the world. All it wants is to know what it is and that it exists so it can make some decisions, right? Nobody totally sucks and nobody is as good as you think they are. Everybody is just a developing artist. And the best thing that you can do with these twins is you can go, hey, this is none of my business. It doesn't matter if I suck or if I'm great. It matters what is it and what's working and what am I building. And like I said at the very beginning, anything can be made good. There's literally never been a script that I have ever worked on with any writer that if the writer was willing to work hard enough, it didn't become brilliant. Okay. So connected to the identity stuff is also often trauma wounds. Again, I'm not going to get into the hypnosis yet. I'm going to warn you before we do, because I know some people love it and some people are like, not for me. And if not for me, it's totally fine. So modern hypnosis was created by a guy named Milton Erickson. And you know what Milton Erickson was great at? The exact same thing you are great at. He was a master storyteller. In fact, people used to go to Milton Erickson. They would tell him what their problem was. And then he would just tell them a story. And at the end of just hearing his story, they would feel better. And they would experience profound change. Literally like that, just from hearing the story. And Milton Erickson created a form of hypnosis called Ericksonian hypnosis, which was done in very light trance, where the person doesn't even feel hypnotized. It's just a conversation. And what I'd like to suggest is that all of you are also hypnotherapists. In other words, when you write a movie, do you know what you're at, or a TV show, or a play, or a novel? You know what you're actually doing? You are hypnotizing two different people, yourself and your audience, every single time. How do you know this? Raise your hand if you have cried real tears over an imaginary scene, right? Raise your hand if you have felt real adrenaline pumping over a chase sequence you know is not real or a horror sequence you know does not exist, right? We watch movies and TV shows and read books and watch plays in a state of trance. People who don't understand hypnosis call this suspension of disbelief, as if the audience was making a conscious decision, like, I choose to suspend my disbelief today. No, that's not what's freaking happening. What's really happening is we're watching and suddenly we are in it and it's as if it were real. Not only that, the Greeks knew we experience catharsis, right? Catharsis is a feeling of change in ourselves, having watched somebody else go through a change. In other words, the exact thing that Milton Erickson was doing when he told a story. We are hypnotizing people. We are dropping post-hypnotic suggestions, which we just call theme. And we are leaving people on the other side changed. Does that make sense to y'all? So if you're wondering, by the way, has anybody ever felt really connected while writing? The muse is with you and suddenly you're writing nonstop and it's just flowing out of you and you've lost track of time and you're experiencing real emotion, writing fictional words about fictional characters? You know why? Because you are in a state of trance, right? So the good news is every single one of you has been hypnotized many, many, many times before. In fact, on an even simpler level, ever walk down the street and think, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip? What happens? You trip. Why do you trip? You trip because there's a little hypnosis trick. Hypnotherapists know that people only hear, they can't visualize knots. So when you say don't trip, the actual suggestion you're giving yourself is visualize trip. And then the brain gives whatever you visualize. Okay. So the good news is you've been in light trance 1,000,000 times. We are constantly hypnotizing ourselves and we are constantly hypnotizing others. That little soundtrack that runs in your brain that you wish would go away, guess what that is? That is your part of you hypnotizing you. This technique that I'm going to share with you was developed by a woman who works with incarcerated criminals. People who are in jail for the first time in their life in maximum security prison. Now, you can imagine ending up in a cell for the first time in your life is a pretty traumatic experience. Especially because for the first week, they only get a half hour out of their cell a day. And so fortunately, our wonderful, perfect prison system has at least one therapist on staff. And they give her a full 20 minutes to meet with each inmate, which is insane. She gets 20 minutes in which she has to do a full history for their file, which means she has to bring them through every traumatic event they've ever had happen in their life, which of course fires every neurological pathway in their brain around that trauma. And then she's supposed to send them back to their cell, right? So she's a master hypnotherapist, and what she realized was, I can't in good conscience do that to a person. So she came up with this technique that allows her in 20 minutes not only to get the person's entire history, but to also release all of that trauma from them. It's so effective that she takes a picture of the people before and after doing this process with them. She takes a picture of them because she says the change in the tension in their body is so profound that they look different in their before and after. So if you want to try it, you can take a screenshot, see what happens for you. And so the way she does this is she writes down, their full intake. She knows what she's doing is she's firing all those neurological pathways, right? So she's bringing them back into their trauma for a moment. And then she goes, okay, we're done the hard part. We're going to just set that behind us. Now, I'm trained in hypnosis, so one of the things I know is that she's giving them a post-hypnotic suggestion, right? That post-hypnotic suggestion, I'm teaching you this in case you ever want to do it with your friends. Because the cool thing, we're not doing therapy right now. This is actually a self-hypnosis technique. You don't even have to share the trauma. This is something the person could do for themselves, but I want you to understand what this is a post-hypnotic suggestion that, yeah, we can actually put this all behind us, can't we? So here's how this is going to work. For today, I'm going to suggest to you, let's just work with our creative trauma. Grab a piece of paper. If you don't have a piece of paper, it can be pretty much anything. It can be like a note card. It can be, you could use your Kindle. Just find something that doesn't have writing on it. Okay? Something that's blank and rectangular. You don't need any, you're not going to need to write to do it. We're just going to play. Everybody's seen a collage? I just want you to imagine whatever traumas have happened to you, like a collage on this piece of paper. So you're going to take it out of your brain and put it onto the piece of paper like a collage. Get all of it. Every last piece of it. Just throw it onto the piece of paper so it's no longer inside of you. It's now on this piece of paper. Take a moment to just go ahead and do that. And by the way, we're just doing this visually. We're not in our mind. We're not writing. We're not drawing. We don't have to do anything. It's that easy. You don't have to write a single word down. You don't have to share anything. You don't have to re-traumatize yourself. You don't have to do any of that shit. You're literally just taking it out of your brain and projecting it onto this piece of paper in an imagined montage. I just want you to take a quick look at your hand. Everyone take a quick look at your hand. Does anybody have a middle finger that's shorter than the other fingers? Everyone's got a longer middle finger? Okay, great. This is going to work for everybody then. Okay, so first I want you to go like this with your hands. Okay, and I just want you to measure that space. Just notice that space between your two middle fingers. And now I want you to go like this with your hands and just measure that space as well from... Beautiful. Everyone's done it. So imagine this is like, if you're the car, this is the windshield through which you see the world. If you're the car, this is the windshield, right? From here to, yeah, there we go. From that finger to that finger, from there to there, right? This is the windshield through which you're seeing everything, right? And then I want you to notice where on that windshield is this piece of paper. And if you have the piece of paper, go ahead, hold it up. Where on the windshield is it? Driving around with a piece of paper on your windshield, right? For some of us, it's here. In fact, for most of the incarcerated people that she works with, the trauma is literally here. But imagine how hard it is to drive down the road with your trauma, bang, right in front of your face. Imagine how many obstacles must hit you, or how hard it must be to see your characters through that trauma. When it's right in front of your face, or if it's right in front of your heart, how hard it must be to connect to your characters through that trauma. The trauma becomes like a blind spot. Now, some of you were lucky, right? Some of you were like over here, or up in the corner, right? And if that's you, there's a good chance you've been navigating pretty well up to now. That in general, you can see, you can connect, but every once in a while, there's something in your blind spot. There's something you just can't see coming. There's something you just can't reach to. There's something you just can't connect to. So what I want you to do, everyone take your paper again, and I want you to move it somewhere. Where would be a better place on your windshield for it? Go ahead and move it. It's your mind. You can do anything you want. What changed when you moved it? What's better about just having it in a slightly different... Mary Jo smiled. Clarity. It felt smaller, it felt lighter, saw more, clear visibility, internally yelled at someone to get out of my way. Incredible. Control, open vista. I could draw like an artist palette. Already had it far away from me. Judgment free. Attempt to let go. Beautiful. A better view. I wasn't letting... So everyone already had to change. Originally, I saw it here. Then I had the instinct to move it here. And that's way better. We can all see how much better that is. But there are still some negative consequences to having it down here, aren't there? Might be a piece of my character that I can't see. There might be a piece of myself I can't connect to. There might be something in my world, an opportunity that I'm not able to see that's just happens to be in that corner, like when someone's in your blind spot on the road. So I want you now, go ahead, let's move it to a different place. Wherever you want it. Yeah. Great. And just go ahead and take a moment and chat into me. What's different? What's better about having it in this place compared to the other two you've had it? It's above me, guiding me, no distractions, free vision. Liked it better in the first place. Go ahead, you can put it back in the last place. Not hiding. Changed view. It won't control me. It's behind me. There's some peripheral vision. I can look at it when I want. I feel more open. You can play around right now. Look at all the different places you can put it. And as you notice that, I wonder when you'll realize you can just put it all behind you. And that might be right now, or that might be when the time is right. But if you'd like, you can play with it. What happens if you just throw it? Yeah, right behind you. Gone. Done. In 15 minutes. What if the source of trauma is your source of creativity, so you can't put it behind you? So this is a really beautiful question. This is a false belief, most likely. And I don't have time to fully work on this with you yet, but I'm going to tell you how you can work on this with yourself. For a lot of us, the trauma was the inception of the creativity, right? The creativity was a coping mechanism to deal with the trauma. And thank you. Thank you for the gift of becoming a creative person. But the beauty is we don't actually need the trauma to be creative. We're already on that road. And we can still remember all those things that are behind us. It's not like we can't access them if we want to. We still have access if we need it. We just don't have it in our freaking windshield anymore. We just have the brilliance of being able to navigate from beyond it rather than inside of it. So you now have a really wonderful tool. And remember, this tool was designed to be used with some of the most traumatized people in the world, right? Because people who commit the kinds of crimes that require you to end up in maximum security prison, they have huge trauma that has turned them into the people that they became. So if it can work for them, it can certainly work for you. How does this relate to writer's block? So this relates to those first two forms. Often the thing that's keeping you from seeing what happens, from connecting to your characters, from seeing things clearly, right? Your mind goes blank. It's not because you've achieved nirvana. It's because you've actually got that old stupid piece of paper blocking your view. And so you throw that behind you, and you may just notice in the next days and weeks and months or even years to come that things just become easier. If you have the first kind of writer's block where you're not writing at all, this will have an effect on that. There are other tools that I use for that. Anyone who's taken Write Your Screenplay with me knows what those tools are. There are other tools that I use for that, but this will start the ball rolling. I did this with somebody using, the Zoltar machine that gives you a fortune. We use the ticket from a Zoltar machine. You can use literally anything to do this. It takes 10 minutes, even less if you're doing it to yourself. And now you have a tool that will give you an instant little bit of relief. And I'm very excited to see. And we have a community now. So if there are ways that this affects your writing, let us know. Before I leave, I'm going to give you a writing exercise that you can play with right now on your own so that we can start anchoring the effect of this right away. What I want you to do is I want you to write just for 7 minutes in your character's voice, not your voice, your character's voice. And you're going to write basically their history. You're going to write in their voice, like they're speaking to you, like you're the therapist. And they're just going to speak to you about their trauma. It can be anything. Whatever comes up, it might be very different from your trauma, right? They're going to maybe start when they were 2 years old and end yesterday, right? But just 7 minutes, whatever comes up, so you get the stuff that's most important. And then what you're going to journal about, Morgan, whatever character comes up first, or you can do it for every character if you want. Then what you're going to do is you are going to journal a little bit about how is the trauma manifested in their lives. Maybe they told you, or maybe you just journal a little bit about it. What blind spots or blocks has it created for them? What are they not seeing because the trauma is in the way? And finally, how would their life change if someone showed them the exercise that you just did? How would their life change? How would everything suddenly be different? The team will also post the writing exercise right now, so you all have it in the chat. And we're going to open up breakout rooms so you all can connect and get to know each other. We'll be back to our regular format next week, but thank you so much for going on this ride with me. And please keep sharing, keep spreading the word. You're how people get to know us. So thank you so much for being part of our community.